Hello, everyone, and welcome to another great episode of the TopCyberPro podcast. I'm founder and CEO Jim West, and today we have another amazing guest. And it seems like every season, this is no different for season three. Season three has turned out to be just one great episode after the other. After having a phenomenal season two, I was like, how can I, do better in season three? And it seems like, a lot of folks will be like, hey, you've had a lot of guests from MITRE talking about different programs and different wonderful things that they do in industry. In today's episode, we're going to get a great, speaking of history and the industry, we're going to get a lot of history about all the great things MITRE has done. And so, no better person to do it than I believe you're the vice president of cybersecurity technologies. I hope I got that right. So we have Dr.
Yes.
Wen Masters, and she is going to, continue to introduce herself, but she's going to kind of take us through some of the great moments in MITRE's history. And so, for those watching, and if you're just now hearing about this organization called MITRE, well, you're in for a treat because if you're hearing about it for the first time, she's the right person to kind of step you through all the wonderful things they do, to include what they're doing today, all the great programs and initiatives that they're doing today. So, without further ado, Wen.
Hi, Jim. Thank you so much for that generous introduction. I'm really honored to be here and to be talking with you and your audience about what MITRE has done. So maybe, to start with, I'll give you a very high-level context about what MITRE is.
Okay.
So MITRE is a not-for-profit company working in the public interest. We solve complex national and global problems for a safer world. We have more than 9,000 employees in more
Wow.
than 55 locations worldwide. MITRE is mission-driven, and we deliver innovative solutions and provide advices to sponsors and partners that are objective and conflict-free. MITRE was initially established in 1958, quite a while
Oh, way,
ago.
way, way back when.
Yeah, and our headquarters was in Bedford, Massachusetts, and to operate the National Security Engineering Center, or NSEC for short. It is a FFRDC, which stands for Federally Funded Research and Development Center, supporting the Department of Defense, or DoD. And today, MITRE operates 6 FFRDCs, supporting various government functions, including defense, healthcare, homeland security, cybersecurity, aviation, treasury, and the commerce. And today, MITRE has 2 headquarters, in addition to the one in Bedford, Massachusetts, where we first established. We also have another headquarters in McLean, Virginia, which is where I am at.
Okay.
In addition to the 6 FFRDCs, MITRE Labs, which was formed in 2020, serves as MITRE's core innovation engine. It has 15 innovation centers and 4,000 plus scientists and engineers, with a large range of disciplines, such as systems engineering, electrical engineering, computer sciences, computer engineering, cybersecurity, mathematics, physical sciences, software engineering, and social and behavioral sciences as well.
So if I could just kind of just jump in for a minute, that's a lot of ground that MITRE covers. And like when you hear these new acronyms, about the federally funded research and development that they do, a lot of folks is like, okay, you might be new to that acronym. Another common acronym that people use is kind of like a think tank in a way, is another broader term where a bunch of scientists, engineers are brought together to serve a purpose or to solve problems, right? Just as Dr. Wynn has said. But what's great about it is that when you start hearing about all the different areas that they focus on, another organization that comes kind of close, they have slightly different targeted in their mission. But people start to think, wait, it sounds a lot like, and you'll think DARPA. And of course, DARPA is an entity that MITRE has sometimes collaborated and worked closely with. But like I said, it's a huge organization with lots of scientists, lots of engineers, some of our best and brightest people trying to solve, as she said, very complex problems. So again, a phenomenal mission that this company is doing. So sorry to interrupt, Ms. Nguyen, but I wanted to kind of highlight on that. So continue, please.
Yeah, no, that's great, Jim. Thank you for that explanation. I will also add, we do function as a think tank, and that's when we come to give objective, unbiased, conflict-free advices to our sponsors and to the public. We also, in addition to that, we also do experimentation and develop prototypes of actual systems. For example, sensor systems. Those are the systems that will serve as models for the real systems that our sponsors need. So very exciting, challenging work here. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So could you maybe highlight, I mentioned in the beginning that we're going to get a little quick history, and there's been so many wonderful achievements and what I would call significant milestones that MITRE has given to society and the world. Could you maybe step us through maybe a quick step through history, if you will? Maybe we'll do decade by decade.
Yeah, I think I'm happy to do that. I will actually give you a very quick, one-liner for
Uh-huh.
the initial kind of MITRE's capability, which was really looking at this air defense. So we developed radar systems for that to support DoD by NSEC.
Mhm.
And, I think I will transition into talking about the history of cybersecurity at MITRE.
Mhm.
And that's because that's kind of dear and near to my heart, and it's also my role. And, when I joined MITRE a few years ago, just to lead the strategy and development of cyber technologies. And so those are the things that I feel very proud, and I'm very honored to be a team member with this MITRE team. And so if that's okay with you, I'm gonna start
I'm ready.
talking about that. Okay, great. So when it comes to cybersecurity, MITRE has a long history of providing capabilities that dates back more than 50 years.
Wow.
So yeah. In the 1970s, right, at a time when cybersecurity was not even a word in our dictionary,
Yeah.
we focused on foundational approaches. We developed a model, a computer system security model called the Bell-LaPadula security model.
Well, and how many people have been studying for like a CISP exam or any exam that has modules dealing with cryptography or access control systems has not heard about that model right there? So that's taking us way back, but everybody has heard about this that had to study anything to do with access control or a cryptography system. But yeah, security access control. Wonderful.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So this model, of course, was developed back then for DoD, Defense of Department of Defense, right?
Mhm.
And it focuses on, just as you say, access control, which is really the confidentiality of objects by preventing users at a lower security level from accessing objects at a higher security level. And so in that decade, we also developed the first specification of a trusted computing base, which was a precursor to trusted computer security evaluation criteria, and actually was known as the Orange Book. And I'll
Yep.
mention a little bit more
CSEC.
about those. color books, right?
Yeah.
And which is a prototype of a highly secure system. Now, the following decade, which is the 80s, we focused on secure networked systems and multi-level security, primarily for the government, with an emphasis on data and networked terminals. Of course, if you want to deal with computing, you have to have means to enter data, to manipulate data, to network and all that, right? To handle data and store data. So MITRE developed the first secure windowed workstation back then, and one of the first secure database management system as well. It was a prototype. And we developed early guards, early firewall, and secure networking standards. We contributed to many US government published computer security standards and guidelines. And by the way, they are known, those standards and guidelines are known as the NSA Rainbow Series. And Rainbow Series because they have a different color, cover page, right? I mentioned earlier about Orange Book. There are pink, there are, blue, there are green and all of that, right? And we also supported evaluations of commercial products under NSA National Computer Security Center Trust Product Evaluation Program. Now that brings us to the 90s. In the 1990s, we focused on developing capabilities for defending against broad attacks, because that's when initial cyber attacks had to be occurred, and people are keenly aware of that, right? So our contributions included the creation and development of the Joint Worldwide Intelligence Communication System. Now that's a mouthful, but I think for folks who work in the Intel community, they know that's called JWICS. And we also developed the Operations and Intel Workstation. And another one I think many people have heard of is the CVE, which is the Common Vulnerability and Exposures, right?
Yep.
CVE, yes, right? Yeah, so your audience would all know this. So CVE is used to identify, define, and catalog publicly disclosed cybersecurity vulnerabilities, right? So, and it's continuously used and updated by the community.
And if I could just interject real quick, that that is a huge deal because early in the 80s going into the 90s, the key word that a lot of people that kind of did IT repair and building your own computers back then, when personal computers started coming about, they were originally like $2, $3, $4,000. And the problem is every manufacturer kind of had their own proprietary motherboards, own proprietary parts. There was a lot of proprietary software. And so everyone was kind of trying to go off and do their own thing. And then what MITRE came and done, just when it came to vulnerabilities, was they set the standard so that you had a common language, if you will, that everyone could speak to, and everyone knew what vulnerability they were speaking about. And that was very important because it's like kind of like herding cats. And that's a major thing. Imagine, not having that common language to speak to, then everybody today would just be a mess with people trying to talk about vulnerabilities. So they set the foundations, which is huge when it comes to vulnerability management. So I just wanted to kind of make a really good point of how important just that one thing was. So sorry to interrupt,
Yeah.
but yeah.
No. Thank you, Jim. So by the way, this month marks the 25th anniversary of CVE.
Wow.
Of course, in the 1990s, MITRE also developed PKI for the Intel community and for DoD, as well as an early security information and event management system,
Yeah.
which is called MITRE Intrusion Analysis System. we established multiple early SOCs and also co-founded the Journal of Computer Security.
I mean, that's so much. And a lot of folks, in the 90s was when we had that internet boom where all these tech companies and websites, Yahoo was really big back then, and there was a lot of investment into tech. And of course, eventually there was a collapse, an implosion, if you will, because it grew so fast. But it was so much was happening in the 90s. It was like every month computers were just getting just faster and faster, faster. Not to say that it doesn't happen today, but today it's like the speed of processors, at least with traditional computing, is not as exponentially growing like it did in the 90s. We went from 386, 286, 386, 46 DX level computers to where we started having, like when Intel started putting out the different 100 megahertz, and then we started tracking things by the hertz instead of the old 486, 386 system, so which usually capped about 120 megahertz. But the system started just getting, it seemed like every few months there was another chip advancement, more transistors. So I think the exponential growth was huge in the 90s. So that was a wonderful time. And then she mentioned PKI, public key infrastructure runs pretty much everything on every network when it comes to anything that's using any kind of certificate pair for any purpose of authentication, authorization, etc. It's based on PKI. And granted, a whole nother episode could be dedicated to. There are fundamental issues with PKI, but those really can't be exploited unless you have like several supercomputers or a future quantum supercomputer that could exploit those. But that's a whole nother discussion. But PKI is huge because without it, you couldn't really do this asymmetric authentication. Everything had to be kind of synchronous, if you will. But when they came out with PKI, it was a game changer worldwide. So again, huge, massive milestones. So sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to kind of let people know why these things are super important. Even today, it's tremendously important.
Absolutely. I love it when you jump in. So this is great. Yeah. So let's transition into the 2000s,
Uh-huh.
right? So that's when the world, in fact, the entire community, were prepared to actually, because the observations of APTs, advanced persistent threats, right? And so MITRE turned our focus onto countering APTs and understanding them, right? And also, of course, importantly, is to develop the cyber threat intelligence, or CTI. And so in that decade, we contributed to the creation and deployment of insider threat detection. We also did the crypto protocol analyzer.
Dr. Wen, can I
Multi
interrupt for 1 second? I need to take a
yes.
2 minute break. I'm going to pause the recording. So we were just now getting segueing into the 2000s. So my apologies, we had a little cut there. So we'll resume.
Okay. So I think I mentioned insider threat detection, crypto protocol analyzer, right? And also a multi-domain dissemination system. That was also the decade where people start realizing we should also have some kind of deception capabilities. And so we developed the first honey client, and we
Ah,
call it
yes.
honeypot, right? Yeah, yes. And early risk management framework, as well as security automation standards. Things you might have heard, OVO, which stands for Open Vulnerability and Assessment Language,
Mhm.
a common language to be
Yes.
used for those, right? And CWE, which is common weakness enumeration, another common language. And also KPAC, which is a common attack pattern enumeration and classification. Now, of course, all of these common languages are really meant to support all the communities, all the cybersecurity professionals, to be able to communicate with each other, having interoperability, and so we can address threats and risks together. Um, that was also, another interesting first, was people start realizing privacy is important, right? And
Yeah.
so we published the first book recommending essential policies and practices for privacy for the US government. So the last decade, which is the 2010s.
Okay.
Um, yeah, getting closer to today
Closer to
now.
today, right? Yeah.
Yeah. We focused on cyber resiliency, cyber physical systems, mobile computing, and further deepening the capabilities as well as broadening use of cyber threat intelligence. One big thing we did during early part of the 2010s is that we open sourced MITRE ATT&CK, which is yeah. I assume your audience has heard about MITRE ATT&CK, right? And it is
Yes.
really a knowledge base, yes,
Yes.
of observed and verified TTPs of threat behaviors, right? And we also open sourced Caldera. We also co-authored Industrial Internet of Things Security Framework, published an authoritative book on strategies for world-class SOCs, which is called 10 Strategies for a World-Class Cybersecurity Operations Center, which has subsequently been evolved to the 11 strategies that was published a year ago.
Nice. Well, they only needed to improve it by one.
You're so kind, Jim.
Well, you've mentioned so many programs, so many systems, and these things were already paid for and put out for the public to have access to and use of. And so many companies out there will spend millions and millions of dollars on, proprietary licensed software. And not to take anything away from the commercial side of industry, but if you're a business owner, especially a small to medium-sized business owner, or you're part of the team that has to make recommendations to a big or large organization, even a Fortune 500, I think it behooves you to be responsible, fiscally responsible with the budget of your company and organization to at least review and be at least aware of all these tremendous systems and tools and programs that MITRE has already developed. And you may find maybe it may not solve 100% of your issues, but if it can get you 70, 80, even to 90% of a solution, it's free and it won't hit the budgets. Because sometimes you have to do your trade-offs on when you're planning your security plans and your layered defense strategy. You might not be able to afford the top of the line of every tool that's out there in the commercial industry, but you may find that a lot of those things that are supported in commercial industry had already been developed or they've actually been built or got the idea from MITRE, because you already heard of so many things that MITRE has given to the world. And it's just the world didn't have to pay anything for it because it was already funded by the US government. And it's just brilliant, some of these things that we couldn't function. The internet wouldn't be the internet today without MITRE. And so if it's just anything I could foot stomp here is MITRE has been a gift to not just the United States, but to the world and to the cybersecurity industry as a whole. So please, if you're anyone watching this, we're going to talk about some other programs here in a minute, but in any links that I have in the description below, spend a few minutes, click through some links, go to MITRE's page and just read about some of their programs. Spend 20 minutes just kind of going down the various, things that they have, because you may find something there that's going to be tremendous for yourself to learn and for your organization. So again, there's been so much to talk about. You mentioned the I think the CTID you mentioned there in the 2010s. I'm actually going to be speaking to Mr. Baker about that program in an episode here in season 3. So again, all these just brilliant. I would call almost, most of the people working for MITRE are what I would call level 99. They are, scientists, analysts, researchers at the top of their game, working for a wonderful organization doing great things. And I can't speak enough and highly enough about MITRE because, again, what they truly do is a benefit to everyone. And again, their mission is tremendous. The people are tremendous. The things they produce are tremendous. So again, sorry to interrupt you, Dr. Masters. I'm gonna keep calling you Dr. Masters, so I'm sorry. But when please continue. I'm sorry I interrupted you there.
Oh, no, no, no. I'm very glad that you are actually helping to spread the word, right? We want more and more people to know about this rich resources that MITRE puts out there for the public to use. And it is our purpose, MITRE's mission is really for public good. So please come and use them. Can even ask us questions about, certain things, right? Or point out places we may have a gap. And all of that are great. Okay, so I had mentioned that in the 2010s, we focused on, among other areas, so cyber resiliency. So this was the decade we initiated our development of a cyber resiliency engineering framework. And the outcome of that work was published in a NIST special publication that's co-authored by NIST and MITRE researchers. It is NIST 800-160, Volume 2. And now it had undergone one revision, so it's NIST 800-160, Volume 2, Revision 1. This is also the decade when the first cybersecurity-focused FFRDC was established. Actually, NIST is the federal government agency overseeing that, funding that. We published the MITRE this Jim SAF, which
Yes,
is
security
security
automation
automation
framework.
framework. And of course, you mentioned CTID, which is an industry-facing entity. And CTID stands for Center for Threat Informed Defense.
Mm-hmm.
And we did that because we want to bring all the industry together. And we want to know what their joint hard problems are so we can help to solve those problems.
Wow. I mean, that's just phenomenal because, you could see that it would be easy for MITRE to kind of be in their ivory tower saying, we're all the smartest and brightest, do as we say. But they create these programs, like she just said, that are industry facing, where they're reaching out to industry, asking for the industry's best to work with their best to shape these initiatives and these programs. And so CTID is just another one of these things that's again a gift to the world because we hear about cyber attacks every day. There's another data breach here. There's another hacker group here. And it's just like, it's never ending. And to kind of be that, I would call it more like the lighthouse in the storm. We have MITRE again coming to industries, serving the industry by saying, here, let's create this program where we can all come together. And by joining together, we're stronger together. And I love those, when they reach out to industry for these things, and it just makes us all better for it. So again, thanks to MITRE, we have another great, phenomenal program that's helping businesses worldwide.
All right, so I think that brings us to the current decade.
Today,
Yeah, today, yes. So today, MITRE has more than 1,500 cybersecurity professionals who provide advanced cybersecurity capabilities, tools, and unbiased advisors, right, for government, industry, and global community. So a few focuses in current decade. One is really addressing cyber protection of critical infrastructure. We are also addressing dynamic cyber resiliency and supply chain security, post-quantum crypto transition, threat-informed as well as coupled with risk-informed cyber defense.
Mhm.
And the best practices in cyber operations. Let's not forget about cyber operations, right? And that's actually one of the very important function of cybersecurity professionals. So cyber threats, as you mentioned, right? Every day we hear cyber attack. We have cyber attacks, right? And cyber threats also evolve dynamically in terms of their sophistication and the methods the bad guys are attacking us and all of that. So we evolve our cybersecurity capabilities continuously as well, just to stay ahead. For example, MITRE ATT&CK continues to provide enhancements as the open source, globally accessible knowledge base of cyber adversary TTPs, really based on real world observations. And we actually validate those before we add them into MITRE ATT&CK's knowledge base. We typically have 2 releases every year with new content. We are, since we're talking about attack, I also want to mention we are conducting ATT&CK 5.0 at MITRE McLean campus later this month. Yep. Your viewers can catch the educational sessions online during and after the conference. I believe it's October 22nd and 23rd.
Okay. Well, this will probably be airing because this is season 3. This will more than likely be airing either towards the end of December or the 1st of January. So it'll be past by the time this is online. But what I encourage people is they do have recordings of these sessions that will be available. And of course, we're going to have the link below for you to go watch some of these educational sessions. But MITRE ATT&CK is huge in and of itself because it was a groundbreaking thing to kind of, again, bring that common language to kind of bring everything into terms that we can all understand, the tactics, the techniques, etc., of how the attackers attack your network, right? And then there's other programs because, as when mentioned, the cyber threat landscape and the approaches are just constantly changing, that we had to come up with other programs that work with MITRE ATT&CK. So I know you mentioned a couple of them, and there's ones that address specifically for cloud. There's ones that are targeting the AI elements of attacks, and what we're seeing in AI, with all the pros and cons of it, the biggest con, unfortunately, is that attackers can use that generative tool help them develop code faster and then develop their scripting packages and their payloads, malicious payloads, a lot faster than we've ever seen before. And so that just means the increase in the frequency and the switch up of the techniques and tactics are going to come faster and faster and faster. And so these are some of the big challenges that MITRE is having to take on with MITRE ATT&CK and all the other programs. Do you have a couple of the adjacent programs that you can kind of highlight and mention that work with MITRE ATT&CK?
Oh, absolutely. So first of all, the couple that you mentioned, right? The cloud piece, which is called Caveat. And we have that on our website. You can look at MITRE's cybersecurity capabilities and resources. People can access that. And of course, the other one you mentioned about AI. So that's called MITRE Atlas, ATLAS, right? Yeah, and so we have those all publicly accessible to help people understand how or see, right, how the threats attack us, and so we can be prepared. And so there are a few others I like to mention. So we publicly released the MITRE Engage a couple of years ago. And so it is a deception kind of framework, right? And but why are we calling it Engage? I guess, one can think of Engage as our defenders engage adversaries that are already in the defenders network. And we want to engage them in such a way we mislead them. And so that they don't get to what they come in to steal or to cause harm, right? And an analogy would be, let's see, an intruder coming into your house, and your house has this a way of directing the intruder, lure the intruder into a particular room, and then you can isolate that intruder and take that out, right? Mitigate that particular threat. So this currently that MITRE Engage is a framework. It really is helping defenders to strategize and think about how to achieve the defender's goal by utilizing various deception operations.
Mm-hmm.
And earlier I had mentioned MITRE Caldera without actually describing it. So MITRE Caldera really is a emulation environment, and people think of that as we want to red team our own network.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't want to do it in your deployed network.
Yeah, not your production environment. Yeah.
Right. And so you emulate your network, and not only that, in that network, you emulate various threat TTPs to see how your own network will be able to defend those attacks. And so, of course, those attacks come from MITRE ATT&CK, right? Where else? Yep. And so in the current decade, we have added some new dimensions and increased the scalability and to the automated adversarial emulation platform called Caldera. And we also recently added Caldera for OT, explicitly looking at the operational technology environment. By the way, I'm really proud of our team, because Caldera for OT, shortly after its release in 2023, received a Sense Difference Maker Award in the Open Source Tool Creator category. So
Excellent.
that was super cool. Yep. And we also have a MITRE Defend, which provides a knowledge graph of countermeasure techniques and their relationship to offensive techniques to help defenders to take actions. More recently, there was a MITRE's System of Trust, which was launched in June 2022 in response to the growing awareness of a supply chain security issue.
Yes.
But lack of like holistic way of thinking. How do we even go about this? And so System of Trust provides a framework helping organizations address supply chain security challenges. It identifies risks and encourages decision-making using data-driven approach. And by so doing, providing a reliable path to an actionable understanding of the risks. So earlier I had mentioned the threat-informed defense coupled with risk-informed defense, right? So quite often, cybersecurity professionals understand threats or cyber threats very well. But then quite often when we are communicating to the C-suite's leadership in any organization, just talking cyber jargon, it will lose people.
Yeah, over their heads.
We have to understand the risk to the business, to the business's function and mission. So that's where the risk comes in, and this is particularly pronounced because for the supply chain, right? And let's say if your supply chain is some materials, right? So how do you understand that from cyber point of view, right? So you have to talk about what's the risk to the business, to the operation, to the mission, to the function.
Mhm.
So that's when we developed this and launched it. And let's see. So earlier we talked about MITRE ATT&CK, which is about the AI, right? But I also want to mention another attack like knowledge base, which targets the telecom, in particular 5G. It's called MITRE Fight. It stands for 5G hierarchy of threats, right?
Yes.
And it provides a knowledge base of adversary tactics and techniques for 5G systems.
Mhm.
But difference between fight and attack is that fight, in addition to observed techniques, also include proof of concept and theoretical techniques.
So I know a lot of folks are going, wait a minute, we have something that's not really MITRE ATT&CK, and we have this whole different system. With the advent of 5G and any other, if there's a 6G or any other improvements, anytime you have a massive growth of bandwidth to use, right, you have a lot of risk. When you think of, well, now we can just download 100 gigabytes in a second or whatever the speed metrics are on the bandwidth. That just means that's more attack surface for attackers to launch distributed denial of service attacks and other type of attacks at a faster pace to your mobile devices. And if you look at the statistics of mobile devices, I forget, it's astounding how many billions. I mean, there's about 7 point something billion people on the planet. Almost everybody has a mobile phone or mobile device at some point. And so when you have all of these systems on these cellular networks, they present their own risk, right? And then particularly when you hear about like the Apple Store, the Google Store, and any other APK that someone could just download for an Android phone or a build file for the iPhone. Android is pretty much the majority of the worldwide market. So a lot of these comes embedded with malware. So having different approaches because antivirus doesn't always cut it. There's and then people can talk about MDM, mobile device management for a corporation, because most normal people won't have an MDM on their own personal phones or in their home network. They probably should in the future. That's a different topic. But the point being is with 5G, there's whole new threat areas that you have to be concerned with. And so the fact that they're leading the way into producing this framework, producing this documentation that all the world can now start leveraging, because we haven't begun to see how deep the trench of vulnerabilities are when it comes to our mobile devices, because it's so convenient. So you have to think in terms of when it's super easy to load apps, when it's super easy to just install things on your phone. That means if it's easy for you, it's easy for attackers. And so many people, we don't hear about this enough because it's more of let's say, hundreds of thousands of isolated incidents where people get bricked out of their phones because it got encrypted or it got malware, stole your data, and you still don't know about it. There are probably hundreds of millions of people every day having data exfilled from their mobile devices that aren't even aware of it and may not be aware of it for many months to years or if ever. So again, this is one of those kind of, I would say it's like the ocean. You can see the surface looks calm, but beneath there's just so many levels of risk that has yet to really come to light. And here again, MITRE is leading the way for the world to say, here's some documentation, here's some things to, kind of start thinking about in your plans, thinking about in how you try to protect this whole new part of our networks is these mobile devices running on cellular.
Yeah, yeah, we want to support people to do defense in depth, right? So rather than just at the perimeter. Yep. And so a couple more to mention. And
Okay.
so earlier I talked about the cyber resiliency engineering framework and the publication, NIST's special publication,
160.
800, right, 80160 volume 2 revision 1. Now it is a thick publication, very technical, and hard to digest and use. And so we thought about the importance of a resiliency, and we really want to help people to understand how to engineer their systems, because resiliency has to be engineered into what you do. And so we developed and recently published something called CRAFT Navigator. And CRAFT, of course, stands for Cyber Resiliency Engineering Framework. And so this navigator shows people how to connect various resiliency objectives and to enable certain engineering considerations, as well as mapping those to attack techniques. And so people can think about, oh, if I build this resiliency into it, then I can address the following attacker behaviors. So to help to mitigate, right?
Mhm.
So that's another thing we recently did, and a lot of people are using it as well. Now, most recently, we published MITRE Embed. Just by that name, it is a knowledge base of cyber threats to embedded devices.
Mhm.
And so we're providing a common understanding of these threats with the security mechanisms to mitigate them.
Wow. Again, all of these great programs addressing all these significant threats and dangers to not just multiple industries globally. And again, I love it. I love the mission that MITRE does. But if there's any other highlights, if you don't have any other highlights, I would like to kind of talk about you and your career and what brought you to MITRE, if you're ready for that.
Sure. I'm happy to talk about that.
Okay.
Let's see. Yep.
Um, So the way I like to do it is my favorite question I ask all my guests is if we got into a time machine and went back to day one when Wen Masters said, I want to do IT cyber, like generally speaking, this is the direction I want to take my career in. What is that story?
Okay. Okay. Um, so let's see. I think my career has spanned more than I should say my S&T career, science and technology career,
Mhm.
has spent more than 30 years. So let's see. All of that would date back when I was just a little kid. So I remember when I was 7 years old, um, I just loved mathematics. So that passion for mathematics just continued to propel me all the way through my college, finishing PhD degree in mathematics. And
Wow.
um, so back then, and I was really just focused on kind of like real theoretical mathematical problems and questions, right? And looking at theorem proofs and things like that, right? But after I finished my PhD degree in mathematics, I was challenged by some friends and family members to say, hey, what's that degree? What can that degree be used for? And if all you do is proving theorems, how many people would understand it, or how many people would use it? I said, well, other mathematicians would, they would appreciate that. I said, well, how about the society? And, they challenged me. They were asking questions like, okay, let's just say after you retire, what are you gonna tell your grandchildren what you did that benefited society? So of course, at that time, I thought about, okay, that's actually an interesting challenge. But maybe being a theoretical mathematician, right? Maybe what I should really move into and look at it is to apply mathematics to some other scientific disciplines. And so because I was always very interested in the space arena. So I decided I will look into opportunities so I can apply my mathematical knowledge and skills to NASA's deep space scientific endeavors. So that's when I joined JPL and used my mathematical knowledge and skills to develop and support various NASA's deep space missions. Started with Magellan, which was a mission to mapping the Venus surface. And then a whole bunch of others, Galileo, as well as latest, the last one I was involved in was Cassini. And Cassini was a mission to Saturn. It actually was extended multiple times because it was so successful. And I learned a lot with during my years at JPL, learning the impact applying mathematics could have to such interesting scientific discoveries. So then I think my career aspiration kind of pivoted a little bit more while I was at JPL. And because the work I was involved in, which made me interested in doing science and technology management. And really, I probably should characterize that as a leading science and technology management, right? And so that led me to ONR, Office of Naval Research, as well as the NSF, where I functioned as a program director, a program manager, sponsoring various research and development programs for the Navy and as well as for science, in NSF. I spent vast majority of my career doing those in that field, in leading the science and technology management. And then I thought, why don't I also experience the development side, the science and technology development side? And so that's when I joined Georgia Tech. I was a deputy director for research at Georgia Tech Research Institute, and subsequently coming to MITRE to lead the cyber technology development.
Wonderful. What about MITRE at that time really attracted you to the organization?
Okay, so it's really is its impact, its broad impact, right? And I think part of that is during my years at ONR and the NSF, really looking at mathematics, computer science, and electrical engineering, physical sciences, material sciences, and how the applications of those can enable advanced technologies and capabilities to benefit the world. And then, of course, when I was doing the science and technology development, leading that part at Georgia Tech, I was also getting more and more keenly aware of the importance of a cyber domain, and also constantly looking into the future. You can't lead to science and technology development if you don't look into the future. If you don't see what are the new challenges we should be looking at that's coming, online, say, in the next few years that we have to prepare for. And so I realized how important cyber domain really is. And so that's when I decided I will capture this opportunity that MITRE had, presented to me. and to come and lead its cyber technology development.
Well, MITRE is better for having you as part of their organization. And just,
Thank you.
even though you've had your PhD in mathematics for a long time, just let me just, again, just congratulate you on pursuing a PhD in mathematics. Statistically speaking, there are so few women that pursue STEM careers in general, and even fewer that pursue PhDs in mathematics. And a close personal friend of mine, Dr. Calmes, out of Tulane University, he's also worked for NASA, worked on several programs and so forth. I think his official title, statistician, would be his official title, even though he likes to think of himself as a rocket scientist, but he's technically not. But it's amazing that mathematics is just another language, it's another way of speaking, of interpreting the world that we live in, and I love that idea. It's just another language, right? But you said earlier, it's like you could put a mathematician in any industry, and they're only going to make that industry better. And so having, mathematicians, engineers, and scientists, these are the folks that are advancing technology. These are the folks that are helping us, have a better world. So again, I thank you so much for one, having the wonderful career you had and still having, and being part of a phenomenal organization. As you said, you had the question of when you retire, what do you want your legacy to be and your impact? And here you are on a daily basis, contributing to making great impacts in the world. So again, I applaud you for that. Thank you so much for being
Thank
part of this industry. With that being said, along this long career that you've had so far, there've had to been some prominent and important people that either that inspired you, motivated you, or maybe even mentored you along your way. Is there any folks that are still with us today, or maybe have passed on, that you at least like to just shine a light on their names?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I will say, there are always positive examples, positive mentors. There are also not so positive or maybe negative examples. They all help us to
Shape.
grow,
Yes.
right? And as long as we understand how to learn from those lessons from the negative examples, right? So I would not mention anything about those negative examples, rather than to say those things, made me think deeply about what's the gap, what's needed, and how I can do things differently to avoid those kind of things, right? So that is one particular aspect. But on the positive mentor part, I certainly would mention, my two dear supervisors, mentors, in ONR. So the first one is Dr. Andre Van Tilburg, who was a computer scientist, who unfortunately passed away due to cancer. He really taught me how to take responsibilities and be accountable for my actions. At the same time, empower people to do things. He empowered me. He gave me plenty of room and to just come up with my own ideas, my own ways of managing things. And then he's just giving high level guidance, right? And if he sees me maybe going down the slightly wrong path, he would, remind me. So, and the other person is Dr. Bobby Yunker, who also unfortunately passed away due to cancer also. He was a physicist, and his own, program management had actually, supported a few Nobel laureates' work.
Wow.
Yeah. And a very visionary thinker. He taught me how to think, and keep my eyes on a horizon, far horizon. And in addition to that, right, I think it really is Dr. Bobby Yunker that made me understand the difference between just thinking strategy or just doing operations, handle technical pieces, and the difference of how you connect them together. And it's really very important. How do you follow the strategic directions, right? Putting into daily actions what we need to do today to march down the needed direction, the path, and also to make huge progress, right? To have contributions.
Wonderful.
So I owe both of them hugely.
You know, sometimes in a career, in a lifetime, having just one good mentor can make all the difference in the world. And here you are mentioning two great mentors that help shape you in your path. And here you are today working for an organization, what I would say is leading the forefront of all technologies, defensive, all these capabilities and ways to make our world a better place. So again, what wonderful people to have been in your path to bring you to where you are today. And so for anyone watching this, having someone that can mentor you, finding those good positive influence, and sometimes you'll have those negative influences that can help shape you too, because you can't always be told that you're doing the greatest job in the world. Sometimes you need some constructive criticism, or at least to have another viewpoint to shape you into the professional that you're going to become. And I love that early on people ask you that question about your legacy, and so at an early point in your career, you thought about, there's a saying, begin with the end in mind. And what better way to, have really worked in your career with that in mind. So thank you for sharing your story and sharing a couple of the mentors that helped shape you. I'd like to kind of jump ahead in some of the questions because I want to respect your time. But I have a speed round, and this is kind of where we take a moment to just have a little fun, where I'm going to ask a couple of what I call rapid fire questions. There's no right or wrong answer. It's just whatever answer comes to your mind first, and then we just move on to the next question. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. So first question out the gate is cake or pie?
Hmm. Both.
Both. Good answer. All right, this one's going to be a divider. Star Wars or Star Trek?
Um, I like both, but I would say Star Trek.
Okay.
And
Most
yeah,
engineers and mathematicians would go with Star Trek too because of the science, and the pseudosciences involved. But it's amazing. Star Trek has actually inspired a lot of technology we have today. So go figure, right? Another question
indeed.
is a hot dog a sandwich?
Oh, sandwich.
Sandwich, okay. Um, so another question, go to another good question. What is one or more of your favorite books of all time that you've read, and what is the most recent book you've read?
Hmm. Okay, let's see. Second question first. So I'll answer that first. Couple of books I have. One is still reading, the other ones I just recently finished. So the one I am reading right now is called Being You, a New Science of Consciousness by Anil Seth. And the book I just recently finished is called Energy, A Human History by Richard Rhodes.
Nice.
Now, if I have to think about all-time favorite book that I've read, since I really like how those books may have shaped me in my thinking, in my, the way I do things, I would have to say it's Making of the Atomic Bomb, also by
Wow.
Richard Rhodes. And I read that book when I first joined ONR. And what a wonderful book that talked about the turn of the last century when all the sciences that related to the application of atomic energy and were in such a huge development, right? A lot of people would putting their knowledge into this. and into how the management of all of that, right? Taking that knowledge, fundamental physics and mathematics, right? And into application and how to manage that kind of dynamics, that kind of knowledge transfer. And so it really shaped how I managed programs at ONR and at NSF. And also that was what shaped my, kind of like a passion for impact.
Wow, what a phenomenal, influential book. And if it's just you thinking about it, it will have a link of it in the description below so that you don't have to search for it. It'll be just as easy as clicking description and the link. And of course, a lot of the programs that Dr. Masters has mentioned that we'll have the links to all of these different MITRE programs and their socials as well, because you definitely want to be following MITRE and the research and the publications they put out on a regular basis. I know we want to wrap up because I want to be respectful of your time and your busy schedule. Is there any like volunteer work you do, charities you support, and other not-for-profits besides MITRE that you dedicate time and energy to that you want to highlight?
Yeah, yeah. So because of my focus in cyber, right? So I actually function as external advisors and to various academic institutions. For example, UCLA's Pure and Applied Mathematics. I'm on its board. And the National Science Foundation's AI Institute,
Mhm.
and that is focused on applying AI for cyber operations, which is led by UCSB and with a large number of other universities. And so those are just some examples of the things that I do, and typically really with universities or professional societies. And I'm also a member of the National Academy of Sciences Naval Studies Board.
Oh, Dr. Wen,
And
can
so we
I
conduct.
take another minute because I'm on a medication. I have to run real quick. Just we'll pause one more time. I'm so sorry.
Okay, so I am a member of the National Academy of Sciences Naval Studies Board, and I also participate on various ad hoc committees that's commissioned by the National Academy of Sciences and on various topics related to AI and to cybersecurity.
Wonderful. So, just besides a super distinguished career, look at all just the work that you do outside of normal business hours. Still, again, supporting these organizations, associations, all these nonprofit efforts. Again, in your free time is just super commendable, and I thank you for that. What a tremendous honor it's been to talk to a tremendous professional in industry. Last but not least, if people are like, "Hey, how can I connect to and follow the great work that Dr. Wen is doing?" What is the preferred social platform?
LinkedIn, definitely.
Okay. So we'll definitely have the LinkedIn profile link in the description below. And we could talk probably for hours and hours on end because I mean just your career alone, the experiences and projects and programs you worked and supported could fill up hours. And of course the work of MITRE, we could talk all day long. But I thank you so much for joining me to just kind of give us an insight into just the highlights. I mean, she's just hitting is if you're thinking in terms of a musician with their greatest hits album, that's basically what Dr. Masters has given us is MITRE's greatest hits. But that's not all that MITRE has done. There's a lot of things that have done. And with all these hundreds to thousands of professionals that just do what I call the unsung work of the analysis, the research, the experimentation to eventually develop these programs, you can only imagine how many programs that a lot of blood, sweat, and tears are poured into that do not get made or publicly made available to the public yet. But there's still so much work that they're doing on behalf of us and everyone in the world. And again, if you've not heard about MITRE, please take a few minutes to click some of the links below. learn about MITRE, learn about the great things they're doing because they've done great things since their creation and foundation to today. They're still what I call leading the forefront in cybersecurity. And they have so many wonderful programs that we could spend hours and hours talking about. And I've had a lot of guests. So if you're watching this, look at my other videos. So, she mentioned security automation framework. So we have Aaron Lippold spoke about the SAF program. We have Jonathan Baker upcoming talking about the CTID, and then Dr. Spina talking about Caveat, which is a cloud focus program for that works with the MITRE ATT&CK framework. I've also had Keith. Forget his last name. I had Keith from Attack IQ, which makes free training videos and certifications for MITRE ATT&CK. And so all of these great, wonderful tools, free training, free information. Again, did I say it was free? It's free. So before you go and start spending money and buying licenses, it's going to cost you a subscription. Just check out MITRE because they probably already built something that will fill your need or at least give you more information and education on what you're up against. Because knowing your enemy is really half the battle. If you know your enemy and you know the attacks and you know the things you need to protect against. And not only that, just publications. I mean, the library is very deep and long of all the publications that MITRE puts out and has put out. When she mentioned Orange Book, that took me back to my CISP training years ago when Sean Harris was still with us. So I kind of dated myself right there. But yeah, we've got, with MITRE on our side, I mean, we have a tremendous resource with this organization. And Dr. Wen, I thank you for having the great career. I thankful that you went into mathematics and you've been able to leverage the immense, knowledge and capability of mathematics and to bring it to the benefit of cyber. And so I'm so thankful we have folks like you. We could only have a million more folks like you. Imagine the mountains we can move in society and the world. So, any last parting comments for anyone watching that's on the fence about coming into IT cyber or maybe reached a point where they're coming close to pursuing internships? Is there any kind of internship programs or things that MITRE supports?
Oh, yes. Yeah. And so MITRE actually has a very robust intern program. Every year we have more than 500 interns
Wow.
joining MITRE. Yeah. And of course, most of them are from college, are currently in the college,
Mhm.
right? And some of them are from high schools. And we put them on a real projects. And so they all get hands-on experiences. And not only that, they also have assigned mentors that help them to learn how to become a productive, person in the workplace. Now, if I may, I'm going to mention one other intern program real quickly, which is focused on cyber, and that's called Cyber Futures Program. And that is really targeted for HBCU and minority serving institutions. Every year we bring those students on board, have a 10-week long focused rotation of all those hands-on projects and also dedicated mentors. Now, I will never forget the very first year we did that. We usually ask the interns the first day, what's your career aspiration? What do you want to do? So the first year when the incoming interns came and about half of them said they want to be, working in cyber fields. But at the end of the 10 weeks, 100% of them want to be cyber
Wow.
professionals.
Wow, what a wonderful internship program. Well,
Yeah.
again, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing some of the history, the highlights, as I call the greatest hits, and just talking about your career as well. I hope anyone watching this has been motivated and inspired to especially pursue a STEM career. If you just don't do IT cyber, there's so many adjacent careers that are still STEM related because it's the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics that will eventually solve all the big problems of the world. So anyone watching this, young or old, it's never too late to make that pivot into a STEM career. the industry, there's industries waiting for you. And again, you can see that Dr. Masters is just a great example of how she took mathematics, and you can plug mathematics into any industry. And thankfully, we have her working on the fight with cybersecurity. So it's professionals level 99, top of their masters of their profession, that are going to help us win the fight in cyber. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Jim.
All right.